whenever I feel those moments of shame, and I feel them multiple times a day, there are times I just got to step back and I got to go, wait, who said that?
What do you think the number one thing that holds most people back right now is coming from?
I think it's a lack of awareness.
Okay.
So for many, many people, they're wrestling with an ancient question. And the question is, why do I do what I do?
Yeah.
So they find themselves, whether it's the morning after, going, what did I do? Why did I say that? Why did I tweet
I know
that?
better. I know better.
Right. And it's just that almost replay of the past day or the past like conversation, the past decision. And they are unaware that one decision is connected to a pain point that happened many, many seasons, years ago. And when you can become aware of that and get to the bottom, or what I call the thing beneath the thing, all of a sudden breakthrough can happen.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Maybe I'm a living example of that. Right. I've said on my show several times, the audience knows my story, which we're gonna spend more time talking about yours. Thank God. But coming from a broken home environment, I never understood why my limiting beliefs captured me the way they did and why they were so hard to uproot. And then one of the things that you write in your book about is this element of potholes and triggers, right? I never understood that I kept falling into the same trap over and over and over again, nor did I recognize that I would fall in that same trap over and over and over again because of a reaction rather than a choice.
Yes.
So if you don't mind, spend some time breaking down potholes and triggers and how that plays into the environment.
Yeah. So, for many, many years, I lived in Chicago. Go Cubs, go Bears. But if you know anything about the city of Chicago, you know that it has a pothole problem. And I'm driving my car a few years back, and I think I was playing with sports radio, and all of a sudden I hit a pothole, and I knew right away that was a crater of all craters.
So the wheel fell off and rolled down the hill.
Yeah, totally. So I pull the car over, and I'm like, but I learned that the city of Chicago has this number, 311. If you dial that number and report a pothole, and if it's already been reported, then the city of Chicago will pay for your damages if they did not fix that pothole in due time, which is why the city of Chicago is going bankrupt. But that's an entire another podcast. But
I bet there's more reasons than just that one.
Yeah, that's right. So I call this number, like I'm hoping that someone's already reported this, that there was some clerical error. The lady says no, that you're the first person to report it. I'm like, okay, you got your own number though. How many potholes are there for you to actually have your own number? She says, that we filled in 108,000 in the last 100 days.
Holy smokes.
That if you go to the city of Chicago's website, they have a pothole tracker to show their work, which is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
But it's crazy because they come up to these like craters, and most potholes are created by water that freezes. The asphalt can't deal with the expansion. And so all of a sudden it creates this crater. So they come up to it, throw some asphalt, check the pothole tracker, 107, 900,000 more to go. They go to the next one. But sometimes they come up to these potholes and they recognize that it wasn't because of inclement weather, that there's some kind of erosion happening underneath the surface. In 2016, 2017, like there was a 72-year-old man who was driving and had the ride of his life because a pothole became a sinkhole and literally wiped out an entire street.
So
so massive amounts of damage, millions of dollars. And here's the thing, every day, every one of us, from our past, from the trauma, from the wounds, from just the expectations that got unmet, the struggles, our choices, we all have potholes. And if we don't learn how to actually deal with those well, they can become sinkholes that don't just affect you. But they affect all those around you. Your ability in the marketplace, your integrity, your family, your friendships. And I've never met anybody who said, today's the day. Today's the day I'm going to sabotage all the good in my life. Today's the day I'm going to train wreck all my friendships and family. Today's the day I'm going to decimate my character. But somehow what ends up happening is people get close to our potholes and it triggers us. And SING is an acronym. And what I've come to realize is that when we get triggered, we're going to go somewhere. All of this part of our past, it's going to go somewhere. And until we can actually understand what triggers us and why it triggers us,
Yeah.
we will be held in check just going to what we've normally gone to. And over time, it's not just going to hurt us, it's going to hurt those around us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny. Well, it's not funny. It's just part of my truth. You know, I think I was maybe 13 or 14 years old. I didn't know this until like literally maybe 6 months ago, but for 500 years, I'm the only Scoggins to actually have to create businesses and generate any level of quote unquote wealth.
Wow.
500 years of a poverty mindset, 500 years of a limiting belief, 500 years of thinking that Scoggins were the ones that were supposed to fall behind. In fact, my dad actually said this after his first business failed. He said, Scoggins don't get ahead, they get by. Remember that. Like he told me that. Right.
Wow.
You know, and if you think about those types of lies, the reason that's important is because at the age of 13, I knew that I knew that I knew. I wasn't sure how, I wasn't sure why, I wasn't sure what. I knew that I knew that I knew that something was wrong with that. And it wasn't a truth that I needed to get. And this is before I actually officially received Jesus to be my savior. I knelt down in the trailer park in front of the swing set. And I actually asked God, I said, God, let me be the one to break the bondage. Let me be the one to break the curse.
Come on.
Now, I did not realize that in order to break that bondage, to break that curse, I did not realize what I was going to have to face and go through to now get to where I'm at today. I was going to have to face a suicide attempt. I was going to have to face homelessness. I was going to have to face getting rid of toxic relationships and standing up for myself and knowing my value. Like I didn't realize that, you know, and there were lots of times we want to give up on that when we're trying to uncover these potholes, get around these roadblocks, you know. As we position this and we talk about the book, right? The thing beneath the thing. How does one understand and uncover the thing beneath the thing so you can deal with the thing?
Yeah, it's brilliant. And even with your story, 500 years that you are going up against, right? And so you have this mindset that has been ingrained in you, indoctrinated within you.
Yeah.
And again, just the idea of the whole podcast from stuck to unstoppable, but you got to understand what's keeping you stuck. And so much of it is mindset. So much of it's been what we've taught by people we love or what's been done unto us. So the ways that I find myself is whenever I get triggered, I choose courageous curiosity. Like I want to know like what's underneath that.
Yeah.
Like what, like for most of these potholes, I didn't create. They were handed to me.
Yeah.
Generationally. They were handed
almost like the city of Chicago.
Exactly. Right. And so the work is, how do I become curious? And for so many people, when they get triggered and they make a bad decision, the first thing that they have is like self-condemnation or shame.
Yeah.
Forget that. There's no time for that. What I want to start is going, okay, you do what you want to do, but the big question is, why did I want that?
Yeah.
Right. What was underneath that?
Yeah.
What was underneath that feeling? What was really going on? So I have a practice I do typically Sunday nights, Monday mornings, where, you know, what makes us human is, you know, we all have the same fact that we cry, we laugh, and that we have 168 hours in a given week.
Yeah.
It's what makes us different is how we choose to use that 168 hours.
Yeah.
And when I think back, I spend on a Sunday night or a Monday morning playing it back. Was there a moment where I got triggered?
Yeah.
And I don't think so much about what I did. I think about what caused me to get there. Was I tired?
Yeah.
Was I stressed? And I get underneath that. What was happening under there? Then I play it out. I look ahead because I guarantee you the way that I'm running, the way that I'm going, the way that I'm chasing, that I'm going to find myself in another situation where I might feel stressed.
Yeah.
Someone might cut me off. I might have a missed flight here or there.
Yeah.
But I play it out. And I imagine Jesus like beside me, almost like a Coach Popovich or Coach K kind of saying, hey, how could you handle this different? Because if we don't do the hard work to understand the thing beneath the thing, whenever we react, we're just reenacting the past.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that guy.
Which is a repetitive bondage. I mean, that's what keeps it existing.
Exactly.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. You know, when I look at, I get one of the major differences I made in my life specifically to kind of begin my internal transformation, which later became the external manifestation, right?
Yes.
Was this scenario of, exploring it without judgment, looking for things that I could discover, almost like going on an archaeological dig, like literally going like, okay, if I'm not going to beat myself, and I'll use this perfect example. I got involved in a very toxic relationship, number of years ago that set me on a course to ultimately become homeless. Okay.
Yeah.
When I got through the process and I finally stopped beating myself up for the things I quote unquote should have known better, the signs I should have seen, and the denial that I was actually operating in. And I just said, what made me yearn for that level of connection? What made me want that level of connection? Like, and I discovered it was because, for the early part of my life, my parents weren't really around. My mom was chasing her own identity and her own significance, through a lot of traumatic experiences she had as a young girl. And my father, on the other hand, was chasing alcohol, right? Neither one of them were really looking for the thing under the thing or beneath the thing, right? They weren't really doing that. And I had a good friend of mine, Chris Lacroto. He's been on the show before. He said, Stephen, the next time you think about your mother and you think about that stuff, I want you to try something different. What's that? I said, okay, what's that? He said, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to envision your mother, 8, 9 years old with skin up knees. Now, when you see her in your mind, he said, picture her, can you see her? And it was very descriptive. Yeah, I can see her. He said, let me ask you a question. How angry are you with her? I was like, nothing, man. She needs help. He goes, exactly. And that was my way of going through the non-judging of my mother, non-judging of myself, and just saying, what was the cause? Now, when I read your work, that's essentially what I feel that your heart is trying to teach people is that process of discovery. Now, you brought up a second ago about the acronym THING. Let's go ahead and break down THING as the acronym.
Yeah. So triggers, it's the setup that sets you off, right? And it's connected to those potholes. If we don't deal with them, they'll become sinkholes. The H is hideouts. And when we get triggered, all of a sudden, for many of us, we want to go to a metaphorical place to escape the pain or the sadness or the discomfort. And we do this in socially acceptable ways.
No, like self-medication as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yep. And socially unacceptable ways. We can binge watch a Netflix. We can, Amazon has basically created the one-click purchase, because they know you're going to want to buy something when you're triggered. But we all have these. The second place that many of us go, and you alluded to it in your story, it's insecurities. And these are the false stories we create about ourselves. And so for many of us, when we get triggered, we're like, man, Scoggins only get by. And all of a sudden the tape starts to play. Yeah. Exactly. Right. And so what do? We often power down, but some of us, we grew up in an environment when insecurity was at play and you were losing control. What did someone do? They didn't power down. They powered up and they tried to just put people on their heels. They try to regain control in an unhealthy way. And you saw judgment or hatred or pride come out and you see it now. And you're like, that's just insecurity. You're not living from your true, authentic self. And then the third place, and when people get triggered, we see this on Twitter, we see this in the news, is that narratives. We get triggered and we create false stories about other people. It's all those people. It's all of them. They're all like that. They're all da-da. And we
look
all
for
evil. Exactly. We look for division instead of actually seeing, like you so beautifully articulated, the skinned up knees of the 8 and 9-year-old mom. You get to see the humanity, right? Yeah. And what's beautiful is, and our understanding, and we both have a shared faith in Christ. And what's beautiful is the G is the word grace. Now, oftentimes we've minimized grace just to be kind of this free ticket that gets us from here to heaven, but grace is so much more. And the way that they talk about it for hundreds and hundreds of years there was stages of grace. And the third stage of grace that John Wesley would teach was sanctifying grace. And this was that process, that ongoing process that makes us whole, holy, and spiritually healthy because we've done our work. We've allowed grace to get into every molecule and atom, every pothole, every past experience, because we actually trust that God wants the best for us. And so that's been the learning, is realizing I have unhealthy escapes when I get triggered, or I can welcome in grace and watch what God wants to do in and through and for and with me.
No, I love that. And in fact, I was reading the book, and one of the things that you've got mentioned in here is events, response, and outcomes. Let's talk a little bit about how, because I'm a big guy in practical nature. Like I like to make things tactical and practical. Now, everybody should go grab the book. No, hands down, it's a fantastic read for sure. In fact, it's quickly becoming a highlighter book for me. So that being said, let's talk about let's take maybe one of your one of your ideal stories about an event, how that leads to the response, and how that leads to a positive or negative outcome, and maybe how we can tactically or practically give someone some hope today.
Yeah, for sure. You talk about E plus R equals O. It's a mathematical formula. Jack Canfield, leadership guru, talked about it. Urban Meyer adopted it, and he brought it to Ohio State University, which is hard for me to admit as the biggest Michigan fan on the planet.
Hey, my wife's from right here.
Oh yeah, there we go. There we go, Grand Rapids. So like I think about this is that we can't control the events that happen to us.
Yeah, but yet we try.
Well, we try. We definitely try. The only thing that you or I have control is how we choose to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how we choose to respond to the events that happen around us will determine the outcome. Will it be positive? Will it be negative? Will it continue a generational cycle of brokenness and pattern of like stuck thinking? Or will it be a positive outcome that leads us to breakthrough to this unstoppable life that you continuously talk about and inspire others towards? And I think for many, many of us, when all of a sudden we get triggered or an event happens, we have the power to choose how will we respond.
Yeah.
And for many of us, we're like, and Paul writes about this in Romans 7. He says, I do not understand what I do. It's one of the verses I don't like in the scriptures because I think that's a little bit of a cop out. I think it's our job to understand why I do what I do.
Because if I don't,
yeah, exactly. Right. And I think when, whenever we're having for me and my wife having an argument, I can't just say like, I don't understand why I did that. He's like, that's not going to pass.
You can, it's not going to get you very far.
Yeah. It's going to lead to the couch, bro. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I think for us to recognize, man, the good I want to do, Paul will say, I do not do. Yeah. But the thing I hate, I do. Yeah. And I just found myself just wrestling with, I can't control these events that have taken place. Other people make decisions. Other people try to trigger me. Other people just like do what they want to do. And it has consequences. Yeah. My dad, when I played college basketball, he used to come up and whisper in my ear and just would always say, change adversity into opportunity. And whenever there's adverse situation, it's my choice, my willpower to say, there's an opportunity here. And it can be an opportunity for negative outcomes, or it can be an opportunity for greatness, for something beautiful to be birthed into this world. So you're in an argument with your wife. You're in a conversation with your kids. You see a problem in the marketplace. Well, there's an opportunity there. So you have the eyes, the mind, the heart, the perspective to see it. And if you can lean into that and respond well, you give yourself the best chance to live that unstoppable life that you constantly talk about. So that's the pieces that I want people to understand. You have agency. Life doesn't just happen to you. You have agency. But if you just turn it off, you'll continue the patterns. And you had a breakthrough, bro. Like you broke through the cycles of 500 years to say, no, Scoggins don't just get by. Scoggins don't just survive. Scoggins rise up.
Now Scoggins transform lives. And that's our motto. I mean, my entire live event is called Transform Your Life for that reason, right? It's because I believe hardcore that the greatest purpose in life you ever have is serving the person you used to be. I believe that. I believe that with all my heart. I believe that's where the empathy and the compassion and grace is developed. And one of the things that I love so much about what you just brought to the table was what you actually just described is emotional and mental maturity.
Yes.
It's mature to understand and seek, right, the underlying message. One of the things that I know we share in common is the approach of take an outcome that you have, positive or negative, right? So if it's a negative outcome, for example, right? Okay, why, what, how, who, trauma, trigger, what, right? If it's and then you're like, okay, now I have a starting point to correct that moving forward. Yes. The same thing's true for if it's good, right? The outcome is like, okay, why, what, when, how, who, right? And you're like, okay, now I know how to amplify that joker, right? I think it's one of the things that I love so much. There's this concept in the book about identity, about having that healthy identity and getting to that place and how a lot of people fall into the trap of letting their identity become kind of insecure. Break that down for us a little bit, because I see a lot of people struggling with identity and insecurities as a whole.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it this way, you will live with integrity to where you find your identity.
Say that again. Say that again. That was too good. Say it again.
You will live with integrity to where you find your identity. If your identity is grounded in shame, you will live with integrity. If your identity is found in what you do, well, you'll live with integrity to achieve and perform. If your identity is grounded in, like, you were made by a beautiful, powerful God who loves you, like, and you will live from that place, and a healthy place. When you deal with insecurity, what you're wrestling with is people who have almost like a shaky identity. Yeah. They know that the shame isn't fully true. Yeah. And there's almost this cognitive dissonance within them, or they know that the self-hatred isn't true. They have this cognitive dissonance. They just haven't fully committed to the belief that they were made for more. They were made for a purpose. They were made to be loved and to be known. So for me, always trying to help people discover not just the past and the trauma and what triggers them, but also, and you keep pulling that thread, that string deeper and deeper, you're going to go, who are you? Yeah. Like, what's at the core of the core? Like, what drives you? Do you know, in Simon Sinek language, do you know that why you're here, why you were made? And when we actually have that healthy identity, it gives us such great opportunity to live a life that really, really is deeply, deeply meaningful and beautiful for humanity.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. I've always said that there's 3 great questions in life, and how you answer those ultimately define you. Who am I? Why am I here? And what do I do about it?
Yes.
And as I was just kind of thinking through some of the things you were just saying, one of the things that resonates with me is that one of the most difficult things, well, it's really 2 difficult things that took me from being a complete atheist. And I mean, argumentative atheist, which was understanding that, or thinking that God somehow hated me, or God, was somehow putting me, if there was a God, he would solve my problems or whatever, not realizing I was being refined the entire time. Yep. Right. And the other one is kind of like that, in that I found it difficult to believe a God would love me because I didn't love myself.
Wow.
Right. And I find that our love for ourselves, or our security within ourselves, is directly correlated to how we feel love from other people, including God. Yep. Right. Now, in the Christian church, the Christian body, okay, and these are people who profess to be Christians, right? So there's a wide gambit, right? Yeah. Huge wide gambit. Like, I just got saved yesterday. I'm still struggling with whatever God's trying to bring me out of. And there's, I'm holier than thou and self-righteous and the whole deal. There's everything in between, right? But one commonality I've seen with all of the various levels of Christianity, meaning believers walking through life, is this mentality that somehow mental health should not be kind of equated or looked at, or like, there's like a stigma around it, right? What would you say to both a believer and a non-believer about the importance of proper mental health?
It's everything. It's everything, because the way that you see yourself, the way that you see the world, is so crucial. And for many of us, we have this level of thinking based on stigma that we have not actually just been able to step back and say, hey, anxiety is real. Yeah. Depression is real. The self-hatred is real. And we all know what anxiety is. It's just when you're trying to control the uncontrollable. Exactly. Yeah. And all of it is the personal piece gets torn into pieces, and we can't manage it all. And what I have come to help people is like, what are you letting land in your mind? So I had this Greek professor, Nolful Satan. He was amazing, but he used to be the air traffic controller.
Say his name was Satan.
Staten.
Okay. I was like, Satan, what?
yeah. But he used to be the air traffic controller at O'Hare in Chicago. And he said, you want to know what real power is? Real power is like telling Delta Airlines they can't take off. You know what real power is? Rerouting United back to Houston. That's real power. And then he flipped it on me. And I'll never forget this moment in class. He said, you're the air traffic controller of your mind. You let these negative thoughts land. Why don't you reroute them somewhere? Yeah. And I just was like, oh, and he's, Max Lucado's taken this idea and take it even farther in one of his books. But he said, give yourself a code, like an airport code. Yeah. So I use my initials SRC, and he goes, whenever there's negative thoughts, reroute them.
Yeah.
And so I sent them all to Columbus, Ohio, because that's where Ohio State is, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama, University of Alabama. I'm tired of them winning, but like, I gotta let the things that are pure and true and lovely and righteous and good and wholesome, I need that to land in my brain.
Yeah.
And too often I let insecurity, negativity, bitterness, anger, all that stuff and it gets in my mind.
Yeah.
And then I see things and I see stuff on Twitter and I get triggered and I just go, no. It's my responsibility to say, you can't land here.
Yeah.
You can't land here. I'm rerouting you. I'll let that land. And in that, it helps me see humanity the way God sees humanity.
Yeah.
See our world more like the way God sees our world. To be able to love more like God loves our world. So that's, for me, the way that we endure mental health. But that is it's a fight. And for many of us, it's harder. It's really harder because of the trauma that we've experienced as kids and the stigmas that we're having to fight against. And I have a lot of grace, a lot of patience, a lot of just sitting with my friends and just saying, hey, you have permission to feel that. But I want you to know there's also stuff that we can do together to actually combat that.
Yeah, no, I love the fact that you also bring it back to community, because I feel like so many people think they're doing it alone.
Yes.
I mean, they tell themselves that all the time. And the entire reason I built Transform You and the Journey Principles Institute and everything is so people would stop feeling alone.
Yeah.
It was, there was a study done a number of years ago, but this was before COVID, that over 67% of the population, almost 70% of the population, would argue the fact that they feel frustrated, alone, isolated, broken, angry, frustrated, depressed. And the other part of that study also said that each one of them would say that their friends and family are living a more fruitful life than them, which means by definition, they feel like they're isolated and alone. Yeah. Right. So I love the fact that you brought community into that. There's sometimes when I write, okay, the writings that I do, whether it be books or blogs or content or in general, sometimes I feel like those pieces of content call me to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so they're, as a person of faith, I'm like, I feel like they're downloaded. I think I feel like it's revelation. As I read the thing beneath the thing, one of the things that I take away is it seems like your work is reading you as much as you are writing it.
Yeah.
How is this book? And this is kind of a selfish question, because this is kind of my process as well, because each of my works kind of affect me. Right. How has this book changed your life?
Yeah, great question. As someone who teaches often the scriptures all over the country, I'm studying for a message. I ask questions of the text. But when I'm actually just trying to go deeper with Christ through the scriptures, I let the text ask questions of me. And I think in the last 5 years, I've watched leader after leader train wreck their life.
Yes.
Pastors, marketplace leaders. And again, nobody woke up that day and said, today's the day.
Yeah.
It just happens. And so I think for me, recognizing my own humanity, my own struggles, my own, temptations, the possibilities of me actually stepping and doing something that I wouldn't want to do.
Yeah.
I realized, man, I got to get to work. Yeah. And so I don't want to be another casualty to character, to integrity. And again, do I screw up? Yeah, I do. Yeah. But I think when I look at this story of potholes becoming sinkholes, I realized, man, for many of us, like, we weren't given a map. And so we were just left having to figure it out. And so whatever was going to help us escape or soothe or almost do whatever we had to do to not deal with these issues, but they keep coming up. And if we don't have the courage to get curious about them, they could lead us to self-sabotage. Yeah. And that's where it started to read me and Dave Chappelle, this amazing comedian, season 3, he signed this $50 million deal with Comedy Central. In episode 5, he's midway through it. He tells a joke and he hears this guy laughing and he thinks to himself, the joke wasn't that funny. So he's like, they only see the money. So he walks off set, calls his driver picks him up in the limo. The driver goes, where do you want to go? Take me to the airport. He had a bag and a passport, goes to the airport, doesn't even call his wife. walks straight up to American Airlines, says, where's the farthest place you can take me? They're like, South Africa in like 3 hours. Great. Buys a first class ticket, goes to South Africa. He ends up spending 6 weeks in a monastery. And like every great celebrity who tries to like almost, revive their career after some kind of, tragedy or
hiatus
or situation, he finds himself on the couch with Oprah. And Oprah, I don't know how she does it, but she like looks into his eyes. He starts to tear up. She's like, why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? You know what he said? He said something so brilliant. He said, because success will take you places that character cannot sustain you. And what's happening in our world today is we have a lot of people who are very, very successful, but it's far outpacing their character.
Yes.
And I think for me, I did not want to get into a situation where my storytelling ability, my writing ability, like just my ability to connect with people far outpaced actually who I am at the core.
Yeah.
And so that's how this message was like, I need this message. I need this. I wrote this for myself because if I don't get to the thing beneath the thing, I am going to create collateral damage for my kids, my family, and for those who trusted me.
Yeah.
And so that's at the heart of it is, how do I get back to my character leading the way? And it takes effort. It takes work.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that. When I look at life in general, so many times what kept me from taking the time to take the thing and look beneath the thing, like to actually go and do the deep dive, was this element of shame.
Yes.
I was so broken. I mean, even in fact, a perfect example is becoming homeless. I wasn't homeless because I didn't have family that didn't care. I wasn't homeless because I didn't have people that wouldn't have helped me if I would have asked. I was homeless because of 2 reasons: pride and shame. I didn't want to let people know I was suffering, or I was lost, or somehow confused, or, like I was waking up each day with a cloud over my eyes and I couldn't shake it no matter how hard I tried. And then I also didn't want people to know, including myself. I didn't want to even admit to myself in many cases that the choices that I had made had actually led me there. Right. Let's just have an honest conversation for a few minutes about shame, because I feel like one of the things that I've worked really hard on our side to do is to awaken the shameless behavior. Like, let's get it out, up and out, right? In all your work, all your studying, all your writing, all your traveling, what have you learned about shame?
Yeah, it goes back to the garden, Genesis 3, right? And you have this man and the woman, they take of the fruit, all of a sudden they just feel, what do they feel? Anxiety, and they feel shame. And the questions that God asks, and he asks these profound questions. He says, who told you that? Did I say that? Because when you connect shame, it's come from somewhere, and it usually has come from some authority figure. It's come from some person who's given you a look or has spoken a word into your life that was unhelpful and unhealthy and untrue. And you have to interrogate it. You have to interrogate those lies and really say, who told you that? Did God really say about who you are? So that's one. And then the other question that God asks the man and the woman in the garden, he says, where are you?
Yeah.
Where's the real you?
Yeah.
Where's the fullest expression of who I made you to be? So whenever I feel those moments of shame, and I feel them multiple times a day, there are times I just got to step back and I got to go, wait, who said that?
Yeah.
Oh, that was from Twitter, from someone that I don't even know.
Now that'll preach.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like why am I giving access into my heart and my mind? Reroute that message, send that to Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
And so like for me,
Columbus is going to get on your nerves.
I know.
They're gonna be like, stop sending stuff our way.
Hey, they keep beating us in football, so they can deal with this. But like the thought is, I'm gonna let the things that God says is true about me, and that the people that I have given permission to not speak words of shame into my story. Yeah. And so part of the work is learning to sift and sort and have that really discernment to say, nah, that's not true.
Yeah,
that's not true. And to really protect the mind, because that's where the war is in our mind and in our heart.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's so good. That's so good, dude. Well, look, man, I feel like you and I could be fast friends and talk for hours. I had to have you on the show. I think your work's amazing. Um, Loving the book. Like I said, it's a highlighter read for sure. Everybody's got to grab it. And I am curious, how can people get a hold of you or get a hold of the book? I mean, what's the best way for people to engage so they can start, digging deep and getting past the thing beneath the thing so they can finally get, to do like I did, break some bondage that's been in your generations. Like, how do they do that?
Well, first off, just thanks, man. I mean, I think you are a story that anybody can look to and say anything is possible. And it's a story that what I love, and my favorite line from what is this podcast has been, what you've been saved from, that go back with compassion and grace to serve what you've been saved from. Like I've never heard someone say that so beautifully. So thank you for who you are, and thanks for doing this and putting out such great content. But you can find the book in any place books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all over, great local bookstores. And then also stevecarter.org, or if you are on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, at Steve Ryan Carter. So we'd love to connect, give a follow, love to chop it up with you online. And if there's ever any ways I can serve, it'd mean the world. So thanks for this time, bro. I really, really appreciate it.
Dude, I've had a blast. The time flew by. It's still flying by, but I don't want to let you go just yet.
Okay.
I've been asking these last two questions to a lot of the folks I've been interviewing recently, because I love how those questions shape someone else's awakening. So the first of those two questions I'd like to ask you is, what does being unstoppable mean to you?
Freedom. It's just absolutely free. In Hebrew, whenever the Hebrew nation would go into battle, they would have this phrase, and it came from when there was a transition in power from Moses to Joshua. And Joshua is like following Michael Jordan. So Joshua's like, dude, who am I, man? I got nothing. And God says 3 times in 4 verses, be strong and courageous. And that phrase in Hebrew is the word rock shazak. And it literally became the battle cry. It's what the nation of Israel, rock shazak. I mean, it was the ultimate jock jams. And so when I think of that, I'm like, I'm free to be strong and courageous because I know my God goes before me, and I can be true to who he made me to be no matter what. I'm not reaching. I'm not searching. I'm not looking for anybody to validate or invalidate who I am, because I know who I am. So let's be free. Rock Shazak.
I love it, dude. I love it. My grandfather, who called me his little soul winner from the time that I was born to the time he passed away in 2016, which includes the 5 years when I was being an atheist. I mean, a very angry atheist at that. I would try to argue with him over and over again about evolution and monkeys and aliens and dinosaurs and water tables and floods. And he would always tell me something very interesting. He said, Stephen, you one day are going to become a David.
Wow.
You are designed to be 1 part lion and 1 part lamb. And I think that's a truth for everybody, right? I think being strong and courageous is living out your life in such a way that you can be proud of the life that you lived, right?
Yes.
I've got this image in my head of when I finally get to heaven, and God willing, I've been able to grab a bunch of crowns while I'm down here, right? I'll just like take bushels of them and just like say, all right, Jesus, here you go, buddy.
Here you go.
These are for you. And, something my grandfather used to tell me. But another thing that one of my mentors used to mention, I get credited for creating this quote all the time. I'll now take it just for fun. But one of my mentors told me, he said, if you want to live a life well lived, then live a life where your legacy outlives you.
Yes.
And I've been having that as one of my battle cries, which necessitates my last question for you today, bro, which is this. What is the legacy that will outlive you? What do you want it to be? What do you want it to look like, feel like? How do you want it to impact this world?
It's great. Every time I put my son to bed, ever since he was 2 years old, we'd ask each other a question, and it was, did you have integrity today?
Mm-hmm.
And my son at 2 would say, I think I did. And, and I'm like, I bet you did. And then he'd ask me, and we just did that. That was just the question, because integrity is the only thing that takes days and weeks and months and seasons and years and decades to achieve, but that can be lost in seconds.
Yeah.
And for me, at the end of my life, I want people to say, this was a guy who said what he meant what he said, that his character and his integrity far outlasted. And for me, I went through a really, really difficult time in 2018. My mentor, someone I love, just allegations of sexual abuse came out and all this stuff. And there's like some cover up stuff. It was a really, really hard situation. And I just didn't want to play with people's trust. And really deep down, I knew if I came home and I was trying to be a part of some sense of brokenness and cover up, that my son, if he asked me, did you have integrity today? I would have had to lie or pray that he didn't ask me that question.
That's so good.
And so for me, it's pretty simple: character and integrity. That is worth everything to me. And I hope that far outlasts me, that when people look at me, they go, that guy was a work in process. He needed Jesus, but he had some integrity and some character.
Dude, I love it, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, man. I sincerely had a blast. I can't wait to have more and more conversations with you in the future, dude. This was super fun for me.
Thank you so much, man. It means the world to be here with you.
Rock on. All right, dude. Well, take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Awesome. Take care.
Right. If you love that interview, go ahead and check out this next one right here.
That scarcity consumed my mind.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking about adding value or serving others or solving problems. I'm thinking about what I could eliminate, what I could cut, what I could reduce. And that reductionist thinking doesn't lead to production, and production is your way to wealth.